Namaste, Assalamu alaikum, Shalom, Ni hao, Buenos dias, Heseche, Akwaba, Welcome, what up though? This is the weekly Holy Scriptures recitation recording. This week is Parsha 17, which is Yitro. So that includes within the Torah, Yitro, which is Shmot 18:1 a 20:23. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is the Shradatra Yavi Bhaga Yogehe, which is numero 17. Within the Digha Nikaya, it is the Mahapadana Sutta, chapter 1. Within the Gospels, it is Mark 5:6. Within the Quran, it is Surah Al-Kahf, which is numero 18. And within the Tao Te Ching, it is chapters 16 a 21. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allah wabha. Deus noster, qui es in celis, sanctificato nomen tuum, vahegu sanam. Dau kedau fehung dau. Ja. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Kyrie eleison. Sivumastu savajigatehi. Sabe sata bavantu sukitata. Fagabia. Ubuntu. Shabono. Frekako. Akwaba upendo na amani. Womenjika. Shishe. Como sunida. Domo arigato. Pilama yela wakantanka. Talk odokashin good. God, we thank you for all that you bless us. Go and the God. Atajama yatafanami. Aho. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Amen. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allah wabha. Deus noster, qui es in celis, sanctificato nomen tuum, vahegu sanam. Dau kedau fehung dau. Ja. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher ketzanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'sok b'davai Torah. Kyrie eleison. Sivumastu savajigatehi. Sabe sata bavantu sukitata. Fagabia. Ubuntu. Shabono. Frekako. Akwaba upendo na amani. Womenjika. Shishe. Como sunida. Domo arigato. Pilama yela wakantanka. Talk adokashin good. God, we thank you for all that you bless us. Go remit a God. Atajama yatafanami. Aho. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Amen. Torah, Yitro, Shmot 18:1 a 20:23. Now Moshe's father-in-law, Yitro, the chieftain of Midian, heard all that God had done for Moshe and for Israel, Adonai's people, that the Lord had taken Israel out of Egypt. Moshe's father-in-law, Yitro, took Zipporah, Moshe's wife, after she had been sent away, and her 2 sons, one of whom was named Gershom, because he, Moshe, said, I was a stranger in a foreign land. And one who was named Eliezer, because Moshe said, the God of my farm came to my aid and rescued me from Pharaoh's sword. Now Moshe's father-in-law Yitro and his Moshe's sons and his wife came to Moshe, to the desert where he was encamped, to the mountain of God. And he said to Moshe, I, Yitro, your father-in-law, am coming to you, and so is your wife and her 2 sons with her. So Moshe went out towards Yitro, prostrated himself and kissed him, and they greeted one another, and they entered the tent. Moshe told his father-in-law about all that the Lord had done to Pharaoh and to the Egyptians on account of Israel, and about all the hardships that had befallen them on the way, and that the Lord had saved them. Yitro was happy about all the benevolence that the Lord had done for Israel, that Adonai had rescued them from the hands of the Egyptians. Thereupon Yitro said, Blessed is the Lord who has rescued you from the hands of the Egyptians and from the hand of Pharaoh, who has rescued the people from beneath the hand of the Egyptians. Now I know that the Lord is greater than all the deities, for with the thing that they plotted, Adonai came upon them. Then Moshe's father-in-law Yitro sacrificed burnt offerings and peace offerings to God, and Aaron and all the elders of Israel came to dine with Moshe's father-in-law before God. It came about on the next day that Moshe sat down to judge the people, and the people stood before Moshe from the matin until the evening. When Moshe's father-in-law saw what he was doing to the people, he said, What is this thing that you are doing to the people? Why do you sit by yourself, whilst all the people stand before you from matin till evening? Moshe said to his father-in-law, For the people come to me to see God. If any of them has a case, he comes to me, and I judge between a man and his neighbor, and I make known the statutes of God and Adonai's teachings. Moshe's father-in-law said to him, The thing you are doing is not beneficial. You will surely wear yourself out, both you and these people who are with you, for the matter is too heavy for you. You cannot do it alone. Now listen to me. I will advise you, and may the Lord be with you. You represent the people before God, and you shall bring the matters to God. And you shall admonish them concerning the statutes and the teachings, and you shall make known to them the way they shall go, and the deeds they shall do. But you shall choose out of the entire nation men of substance, God-fearers, men of truth, who hate monetary gain, and you shall appoint over them Israel leaders over thousands, leaders over hundreds, leaders over 50s, and leaders over 10s. And they shall judge the people at all times, and it shall be that any major matter they shall bring to you, and they themselves shall judge every minor matter, thereby making it easier for you, and they shall bear the burden with you. If you do this thing, and the Lord commands you, you will be able to survive, and also all this people will come upon their place in peace. Moshe obeyed his father-in-law, and he did all that he said. Moshe chose men of substance out of all of Israel, and appointed them as heads of the people, leaders of thousands, leaders of the hundreds, leaders of 50s, and leaders of 10s. And they would judge the people at all times. The difficult case they would bring to Moshe, but any minor case they themselves would judge. Moshe saw his father-in-law off, and he went away to his land. In the 3rd month of the children of Israel's departure from Egypt, on this day they arrived in the desert of Sinai. They journeyed from Rephidim, and they arrived in the desert of Sinai, and they encamped in the desert, and Israel encamped there opposite the mountain. Moshe ascended to God, and the Lord called to him from the mountain, saying, So shall you say to the house of Yaakov, and tell the sons of Israel, You have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings, and I brought you to me. And now if you obey me and keep my covenant, you shall be to me a treasure out of all peoples, for mine is the entire earth. And you shall be to me a kingdom of princes and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the children of Israel. Moshe came and summoned the elders of Israel, and placed before them all these words that the Lord had commanded him. And all the people replied in unison and said, All that the Lord has spoken we shall do. And Moshe took the words of the people back to the Lord. And the Lord said to Moshe, Behold, I am coming to you in the thickness of the cloud, in order that the people hear when I speak to you, and they will also believe in you forever. And Moshe relayed the words of the people to the Lord. And the Lord said to Moshe, Go to the people and prepare them today and mañana, and they shall wash their garments, and they shall be prepared for the 3rd day. For on the 3rd day the Lord will descend before the eyes of all the people upon Mount Sinai. And you shall set boundaries for the people around, saying, Beware of ascending the mountain or touching its edge. Whoever touches the mountain shall surely be put to death. No hand shall touch it, for he shall be stoned or cast down. Whether man or beast, he shall not live. When the ram's horn sounds a long, drawn-out blast, they may ascend the mountain. So Moshe descended from the mountain to the people, and he prepared the people, and they washed their garments. He said to the people, Be ready for 3 days. Do not go near a woman. It came to pass on the 3rd day, when it was matin, that there were thunderclaps and lightning flashes, and a thick cloud was upon the mountain, and a very powerful blast of a shofar, and the entire nation that was in the camp shuddered. Moshe brought the people out towards God from the camp, and they stood at the bottom of the mountain. And the entire Mount Sinai smoked because the Lord had descended upon it in fire, and its smoke ascended like the smoke of the kiln, and the entire mountain quaked violently. The sound of the shofar grew increasingly stronger. Moshe would speak, and God would answer him with a voice. The Lord descended upon Mount Sinai to the peak of the mountain, and the Lord summoned Moshe to the peak of the mountain, and Moshe ascended. The Lord said to Moshe, "Go down, warn the people, lest they break their formation to go nearer to the Lord, and many of them will fall. And also the priests who go near to the Lord shall prepare themselves, lest the Lord wreak destruction upon them." And Moshe said to the Lord, "The people cannot ascend to Mount Sinai, for you warned us, saying, 'Set boundaries for the mountain and sanctify it.'" But the Lord said to him, "Go, descend, and then you shall ascend, and Aaron with you. But the priests and the populace shall not break their formation to ascend to the Lord, lest Adonai wreak destruction upon them." So Moshe went down to the people and said this to them. God spoke all these words to respond. "I am the Lord your God, who took you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall not have the deities of others in my presence. You shall not make for yourself a graven image or any likeness which is in the heavens above, which is on the earth below, or which is in the water beneath the earth. You shall neither prostrate yourself before them nor worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a zealous God, who visits the iniquity of the fathers upon the sons, upon the third and the fourth generation of those who hate me. And I perform loving kindness to thousands of generations, to those who love me, and to those who keep my commandments. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold blameless anyone who takes Adonai's name in vain. Remember Shabbat to sanctify it. 6 days you may work and perform all your labor, but the seventh day is Shabbat to the Lord your God. You shall perform no labor, neither you, your son, your daughter, your manservant, your maidservant, your beast, nor your stranger who is in your cities. For in 6 days the Lord made the heaven and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and Adonai rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed Shabbat and sanctified it. Honor your far and your more, in order that your days may be lengthened on the land that the Lord your God is giving you. You shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, his manservant, his maidservant, his ox, his donkey, or whatever belongs to your neighbor. And all the people saw the voices and the torches, the sound of the shofar in the smoky mountain, and the people saw and trembled, so they stood from a distance. They said to Moshe, "You speak with us, and we will hear, but let God not speak with us, lest we die." But Moshe said to the people, "Fear not, for God has come in order to exalt you, and in order that Adonai's awe shall be upon your faces, so that you shall not sin." The people remained distantly off, but Moshe drew near to the opaque darkness where God was. The Lord said to Moshe, "So shall you say to the children of Israel, you have seen that from the heavens I have spoken with you. You shall not make images of anything that is with me. Deities of silver or deities of gold you shall not make for yourselves. An altar of earth you shall make for me, and you shall slaughter beside it your burnt offerings and your peace offerings, your sheep and your cattle. Wherever I allow my name to be mentioned, I will come to you and bless you. And when you make for me an altar of stones, you shall not build them of hewn stones, lest you wield your sword upon it and desecrate it. And you shall not ascend with steps upon my altar, so that your nakedness shall not be exposed upon it." Bhagavad Gita, Shradatra Yavi Bhaga Yogehe, número 17. Arjuna said, when men sacrifice to the angels with faith but discard the injunctions of the scriptures, what is the nature of their devotion, O Krishna? Is it sattva, rajas, or tamas? Sri Krishna said, the faith of men born of their individual natures is of three kinds. It is characterized by sattva, rajas, or tamas. Hear now concerning it. The faith of each man is in accordance with his natural disposition. A man, O Bharata, is made of his faith. What his faith is, that verily he is. Men in whom sattva prevails honor the angels. Men in whom rajas prevail honor demi-angels and demons. And men in whom tamas prevails honor ghosts and disembodied spirits. Those vain and conceited men who, impelled by the force of their lust and attachment, subject themselves to severe austerities not ordained by the scriptures, and fools that they are, torture all their bodily organs, and me too, who dwell within the body. Know that they are fiendish in their resolves. Even the food that is dear to all is of three kinds. Likewise are the sacrifices, austerities, and gifts. Hear now the distinctions between them. Food that promotes longevity, vitality, strength, health, pleasure, appetite, and that is succulent, oleaginous, substantial, and agreeable, is favored by people endowed with sattva. Food that is excessively bitter, sour, salty, hot, acrid, dry, and burning is liked by people endowed with rajas. It causes pain, grief, and disease. And food that is ill-cooked, tasteless, putrid, stale, unclean, and left over is favored by people endowed with tamas. That sacrifice is of the nature of sattva, which is offered according to the scriptural rules by those who expect no reward and who firmly believe that it is their duty to sacrifice. But that sacrifice which is performed in expectation of reward and for the sake of ostentation, know that to be of the nature of rajas. And that sacrifice which is not performed according to the scriptural rules, and in which no food is distributed, no hymns are chanted, and no fees paid, and which is devoid of faith, is said to be of the nature of tamas. Honoring of the angels, of the twice born, of teachers, and of the wise. Cleanliness, uprightness, continence, and non-violence. These are said to be the austerity of the body. Words that do not give offense, and that are truthful, pleasant, and beneficial, and also the regular recitation of the Vedas. These are said to be the austerity of speech. Serenity of mind, gentleness, silence, self-control, and purity of heart. These constitute the austerity of the mind. This threefold austerity, practiced with supreme faith by steadfast men, without the desire for fruit, is said to be of the nature of sattva. The austerity that is practiced in order to gain respect, honor, or reverence, or for ostentation, is said to be of the nature of rajas. Its result is uncertain and transitory. The austerity that is practiced with a determination based on foolishness, by means of self-torture, or for the purpose of ruining another, is declared to be of the nature of tamas. That gift which is made to one who can make no return, and with the feeling that it is one's duty to give, and which is given at the right place and time, and to a worthy person. Such a gift is held to be of the nature of sattva. But that which is given for the sake of recompense, or with the expectation of fruit, or in a grudging mood, is accounted as of the nature of rajas. And the gift that is made without respect or with disdain, at an improper place and time, and to an unworthy person, is declared to be of the nature of tamas. Om Tat Sat. This has been declared as the threefold designation of Brahman. By means of it were created at the beginning the Brahmins, the Vedas, and the sacrifices. Therefore, the act of sacrifice, gift, and austerity enjoined by the scriptures are always begun by the followers of the Vedas with the utterance of Om, and with the utterance of Tat, and without seeking any recompense, are the various acts of sacrifice, austerity, and gift performed by those who seek liberation. The word Sat is utilized to denote reality and benevolence, and likewise, O Partha, the word Sat is utilized for an auspicious action. Steadfast in sacrifice, austerity, and gift is also called Sat, and so too is any action connected therewith. Whatever sacrifice or gift is made, whatever austerity is practiced, whatever ceremony is observed, it is called asat, non-existence, if it is done without faith. It is of no account here or hereafter. Digha Nikaya, the Mahapadana Sutta, Chapter 1. The Exalted One was once staying at Savatthi, in Anatta Pindika's pleasurance in the Jeta wood, at the Karari tree cottage. Now amongst many bhikshus who had returned from their alms tour and were assembled, sitting together after their meal in the pavilion in the Karari grounds, a religious conversation bearing on previous births arose, to the effect that thus and thus were previous births. And the Exalted One, with clear and heavenly ear, surpassing the hearing of men, overheard this conversation amongst the bhikshus. And arising from his seat, he came to the pavilion in the Karari grounds, and took his seat on the mat spread out for him. And when he had sat down, he said to the brethren, "What is the talk on which you are engaged sitting here, and what is the subject of conversation between you?" And they told him all. Then he said, "Do you not wish, brethren, to hear some religious talk on the subject of former lives? Now is the time, O Exalted One, now is the time, Welcome One, for the Exalted One to give us a religious discourse on the subject of former lives. When the brethren have heard it from the Exalted One, they will bear it in mind. Wherefore then, brethren, hearken well to me, and I will speak." "So be it, Master," replied the brethren. And the Exalted One said, "It is now 91 eons ago, brethren, since Vipassi, the Exalted One, Arahat Buddha Supreme, arose in the world. It is now 31 eons ago, brethren, since Sikhi, the Exalted One, Arahant Buddha Supreme, arose in the world. It was in that same 31st eon, brethren, that Vasabu, the Exalted One, Arahat Buddha Supreme, arose in the world. It was in this present auspicious eon, brethren, that Kakusanda, the Exalted One, Arahat Buddha Supreme, arose in the world. It was in this auspicious eon, brethren, that Konagamana, the Exalted One, Arahat Buddha Supreme, arose in the world. It was in this auspicious eon, brethren, that Kassapa, the Exalted One, Arahat Buddha Supreme, arose in the world. It is in this auspicious eon, brethren, that now I and Arahat Buddha Supreme have arisen in the world." In the like manner, the rest of the statements in the following table are given in similar paragraphs. Now, not long after he had gone out, this talk arose amongst the brethren. "How wonderful a thing, brethren, and how strange is the great genius, the mastermind of the Tathagata, that he should remember the Buddhas of old, who attained final completion, who cut off obstacles, who cut down barriers, who have ended the cycle, who have escaped from all sorrow. That he should remember all these, that such was their rank, such were their personal names, such were their family names, such the span of their lives, such the pair of disciples, and such the number of the congregations of their disciples, telling us of such was the birth of those Exalted Ones, such were their names and their clans, such were their ethics, their doctrines, their wisdom, such did they live, and thus they gained emancipation. Now what think you, brethren? Has the principle of truth been clearly discerned by the Tathagata, so that by his discernment of it he remembers all those facts about the Buddhas of the past? Or have angels revealed this matter to the Tathagata, so that thereby he remembers?" Now such was the trend of the talk that was going on amongst the brethren, when the Exalted One, rousing himself at eventide from meditation, went to the pavilion to the Karari grounds, and took his seat on the mat spread out for him. And when he had sat down, he said to the brethren, "What is the talk on which you are engaged, brethren, as ye sit here, and what was the subject of conversation between you?" And they told him all. It is through his clear discernment of a principle of the truth, brethren, that the Tathagata is able to remember all those facts about the Buddhas of old. And angels also have revealed these matters to him, enabling him to remember all those things. Do you not wish, brethren, to hear further religious discourse bearing on former lives? Now, O Exalted One, is the time. Now, O Welcome One, is the time. Whatsoever the Exalted One may tell us further bearing on former lives, the brethren will listen to it and bear it in mind. Wherefore, brethren, hearken and attend well, and I will speak." "So be it, Master," replied the brethren. The Exalted One said, "I have told you, brethren, when Vipassi, the Exalted One, Arahat Buddha Supreme, arose in the world, into what rank and family he was born, how long he lived, where he became a Buddha, the names of his leading disciples, the number of his disciples, the name of his ministering bhikshu, of his far, his more, and all their place of residence. Now Vipassi, brethren, when as a bodhisat he ceased to belong to the host of the heaven of delight, descended into his more's womb, mindful and self-possessed. That in such a case is the rule. It is the rule, brethren, that when the bodhisat ceases to belong to the hosts of the heaven of delight and enters a more's womb, there is made manifest throughout the universe, including the worlds above of the angels, the Maras, and the Brahmas, and the world below with its recluses and Brahmins, its princes and peoples, an infinite and splendid radiance, passing the glory of the angels. Even in those spaces which are between the worlds, baseless, murky, and dark, and where even moon and soleil, so wondrous and mighty, cannot prevail to give light, even there is made manifest this infinite and splendid radiance, passing the glory of the angels. And those beings who happen to be existing there, perceiving each other by that radiance, say, Verily there be other beings living here. And the 10,000 worlds of the universe tremble and shudder and quake. And that this infinite splendid radiance is made manifest in the world, passing the glory of the angels. That in such a case is the rule. It is the rule, brethren, that when the bodhisattva is descending into a more's womb, 4 sons of the angels go towards the 4 quarters to protect him, saying, Let none be he human or non-human, or whatsoever he be, work harm to the bodhisattva or to the more of the bodhisattva. That in such a case is the rule. It is the rule, brethren, that when the bodhisattva is descending into a more's womb, the more of the bodhisattva is a woman virtuous through her own nature, averse from taking life, averse from taking what is not given, averse from unchastity, averse from lying speech, averse from indulgence and strong drinks. That in such a case is the rule. It is the rule, brethren, that when the bodhisattva is descending into a more's womb, that more has no mind for indulgence in the pleasures of sense with men, and is incapable of transgression with any man whatever who may be enamored of her. That in such a case is the rule. It is the rule, brethren, that when the bodhisattva is descending into a more's womb, that more is living in the enjoyment yielded by the 5 senses, is addicted to it, possessed of it, surrounded by it. That in such a case is the rule. It is the rule, brethren, that when the bodhisattva is descending into a more's womb, no ailment whatsoever befalls that more. At ease is she and unafflicted in body. And within her womb she sees the bodhisattva complete in the endowment of all his organs and his limbs. Just as if, brethren, there were a beautiful cat's eye gem of purest water, octangular, cut with supreme skill, translucent and flawless, excellent in every way. And through it were strung a thread, blue or orange, red, yet white or yellow. If a man who had eyes to see were to take it into his hand, he would clearly perceive how the one was strung on the other. Even so, brethren, when the bodhisattva is descending into a more's womb, no ailment whatever befalls that more. At ease is she and unaffected in body, and within her womb she sees the bodhisattva complete in the endowment of all his organs and his limbs. That in such a case is the rule. It is the rule, brethren, that on the 7th day after the birth of a bodhisattva, the more of the bodhisattva dies and rises again in the heaven of delight. That in such a case is the rule. It is the rule, brethren, that whereas other women bring forth after bearing either 9 or 10 months, the more of the bodhisattva brings not forth till she has borne the child 10 months. That in such a case is the rule. It is the rule, brethren, that whereas other women bring forth sitting or reclining, the more of the bodhisattva brings forth not so, but standing. That in such a case is the rule. It is the rule, brethren, that when a bodhisattva issues from his more's womb, angels receive him first, afterwards men. That in such a case is the rule. It is the rule, brethren, that when a bodhisattva issues from his more's womb and has not yet touched the earth, 4 sons of the angels receive him and present him to the more, saying, Rejoice, lady, for mighty is the son that is born to thee. That in such a case is the rule. It is the rule, brethren, that when a bodhisattva issues from his more's womb, he comes forth stainless, undefiled by watery matter, undefiled by mucus, undefiled by blood, undefiled by uncleanness, whatever, pure, spotless. Just as if, brethren, a jewel were laid down on Benares muslin, and the jewel is not stained by the muslin, nor is the muslin stained by it. And why is that? Because of the purity of both. Even so, brethren, is it that at the birth of a bodhisattva, that in such a case is the rule. It is the rule, brethren, that when a bodhisattva issues from his more's womb, 2 showers of water appear from the sky, one of cold, the other of warm water, wherewith they do the needful bathing of the bodhisattva and of his more. That in such a case is the rule. It is the rule, brethren, that when a bodhisattva has come to birth, he stands firm on both feet, and with his feet to the north takes 7 strides. The while a white canopy is held over him, and looking around on every side, he utters, as with the voice of a bull, Chief am I in the world, eldest am I in the world, foremost am I in the world. This is the last birth. There is now no further coming to be. That in such a case is the rule. It is the rule, brethren, that when a bodhisattva issues from his more's womb, there is made manifest throughout the universe, including the worlds above of the angels, the Maras, and the Brahmas, and the world below with its recluses and Brahmins, its princes and peoples, an infinite and splendid radiance passing the glory of the angels. Even in those spaces which are between the worlds, baseless, murky, and dark, and where even moon and soleil, so wondrous and mighty, cannot prevail to give light, even there is manifest this infinite and splendid radiance passing the glory of the angels. And those beings who happen to be existing there, perceiving each other by that radiance, say, Verily there be other beings living here. And the 10,000 worlds of the universe tremble and shudder and quake, and this infinite and splendid radiance is made manifest in the world, passing the glory of the angels. This, in such a case, is the rule. When the boy Vipassi, brethren, was born, they brought word to Bandhuman, the Raja, saying, A son, my master, is born to you. May it please you to see him. Now when Bandhuman the Raja had seen the babe, he sent for the Brahmin soothsayers, saying, Let the reverend Brahmin soothsayers see the child. Then, brethren, when the Brahmin soothsayers had seen the child, they said to Bandhuman the Raja, Rejoice, master, for one of the mighty ones is born thy son. Fortune is thine, my master. Benevolent fortune is thine, in that in thy family such a son has come to birth. For this babe, my master, is endowed with the 32 marks of the great man, and to one so endowed, 2 careers lie open, and none other. If he live the life of the house, he becomes master of the wheel, a righteous master of the right, ruler of the 4 quarters, conqueror, guardian of the people's benefit, owner of the 7 treasures. His do those 7 treasures become, to wit, the wheel treasure, the elephant treasure, the horse treasure, the gem treasure, the woman treasure, the steward treasure, the eldest son treasure, making 7. Further than 1,000 sons will be his, heroes, vigorous of frame, crushers of the hosts of the enemy. He, when he has conquered this earth to its ocean bounds, is established not by the scourge, not by the sword, but by righteousness. But if such a boy go forth from the life of the house into the homeless state, he becomes an Arahat, a Buddha supreme, rolling back the veil from the world. And what my master are the 32 marks of the great man wherewith endowed this child hath 2 careers open to him, and only 2, that of the master of the wheel, that of Buddha supreme. This babe, my master, has feet with level tread. That this is so counts to him as one of the marks of a great man. On the soles of the babe's feet, wheels appear with 1,000 spokes, with tire and hub, in every way complete. That this is so counts to him as one of the marks of a great man. This babe has projecting heels. He is long in the fingers and long in the toes, soft and tender in hands and feet, with hands and feet like a net. His ankles are like rounded shells. His legs are like an antelope's. Standing and without bending, he can touch and rub his knees with either hand. His male organs are concealed in a sheath. His complexion is like bronze, the color of gold. His skin is so delicately smooth that no dust cleaves to his body. The down on it grows in single hairs, one to each pore. The small hairs on his body turn upward, every hair of it blue-black in color like eye paint, in little curling rings curling to the right. This babe has a frame divinely straight. He has 7 convex surfaces. The front half of his body is like a lion's. There is no furrow between his shoulders. His proportions have the symmetry of the banyan tree. The length of his body is equal to the compass of his arms, and the compass of his arms is equal to his height. His bust is equally rounded. His taste is supremely acute. His jaw is as a lion's. He has 40 teeth, regular teeth, continuous. The eye teeth, very lustrous. His tongue is very long. He has a divine voice like the Karavika birds. His eyes are intensely blue. He has the eyelashes of a cow. Between the eyebrows appears a hairy mole, white and like soft cotton down. His head is like a royal turban. This too counts to him as one of the marks of a great man. Endowed by master as is this babe with these 32 marks of the great man, 2 careers and none other are open to him. Thereupon Bandhuman the Raja, brethren, let the Brahmin soothsayers be invested with new robes and gratified their every desire. And Bandhuman the Raja, brethren, engaged nurses for the babe Vipassi. Some suckled him, some washed him, some nursed him, some carried him about on their hip. And a white canopy was held over him day and night, for it was commanded, Let not cold or heat or straws or dust or dew annoy him. And the boy Vipassi, brethren, became the darling and the beloved of the people, even as a blue or red or white lotus is dear to and beloved of all, so that he was literally carried about from lap to lap. And when the boy Vipassi was born, brethren, he had a lovely voice, well modulated and sweet and charming, just as the voice of the Karavika bird in the mountains of the Himalayas is lovely and sweetly modulated and charming. And when the boy Vipassi was born, brethren, there was manifested in him the heavenly eye, born of the result of his karma, by the which verily he could see as distant as a league by day and eke by night. And when the boy Vipassi was born, brethren, he looked forward with unblinking eyes like the angels in the heaven of delight. Now it was because of this people exclaiming, Vipassi, Vipassi, Asir, Asir, that this became his name. And again, brethren, whilst Bandhuman Raja was sitting as judge, he would take the boy on his hip, and so lay down the law as to the cases arising, till verily the boy, thus seated on his father's hip, and continually considering, would also determine the points of the matter according to justice. Then at the thought, it is the babe who is judging cases aright. Ever further and further did that word Asir, Asir become utilized as his name. Now Bandhaman Raja, brethren, had 3 palaces built for the boy of Vipassi, one for the rains, one for the winter, and one for the summer. And he had them fitted with every kind of gratification for the 5 senses. Thus it came to pass that Vipassi spent the 4 months of the rainy season in their rains palace, ministered to by bands of female musicians, and not once did he come down from the upper terrace into the mansion. Gospels, Mark 5:6. They went across to the lake to the region of the Gerasenes. When Jesus got out of the boat, a man with an impure spirit came from the tombs to meet him. This man lived in the tombs, and no one could bind him any further, not even with a chain. For he had often been chained hand and foot, but he tore the chains apart and broke the irons on his feet. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day amongst the tombs and in the hills he would cry out and cut himself with stones. When he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and fell on his knees in front of him. He shouted at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? In God's name, don't torture me." For Jesus had said to him, "Come out of this man, you impure spirit." Then Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" "My name is Legion," he replied, "for we are many." And he begged Jesus again and again not to send them out of the area. A large herd of pigs was feeding on the nearby hillside. The demons begged Jesus, "Send us amongst the pigs, not allow us to go into them." He gave them permission, and the impure spirits came out and went into the pigs. The herd, about 2,000 in number, rushed down the steep bank into the lake and were drowned. Those tending the pigs ran off and reported this in the town and countryside, and the people went out to see what had happened. And when the boy When they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons sitting there, dressed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Those who had seen it told the people what had happened to the demon-possessed man, and told about the pigs as well. Then the people began to plead with Jesus to leave their region. As Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. Jesus did not let him, but said, Go home to your own people and tell them how much God has done for you, and how God has had mercy on you." So the man went away and began to tell in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and all the people were amazed. When Jesus had again crossed over by boat to the other side of the lake, a large crowd gathered around him whilst he was by the lake. Then one of the synagogue leaders, named Jairus, came, and when he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet. He pleaded earnestly with him, "My little daughter is dying. Please come and put your hands on her, so that she will be healed and live." So Jesus went with him. A large crowd followed and pressed around him. And a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors, and had spent all she had. Yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak, because she thought, "If I just touch his clothes, I will be healed." Immediately her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. At once Jesus recognized that power had gone out from him. He turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" "You see the people crowding against you," his disciples answered, "and yet you can ask, 'Who touched me?'" But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, and, trembling with fear, told him the whole truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering." Whilst Jesus was still speaking, some people came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader. "Your daughter is dead," they said. "Why bother the teacher any further?" Overhearing what they said, Jesus told him, "Don't be afraid, just believe." He did not let anyone follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they came to the home of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw a commotion with people crying and wailing loudly. He went in and said to them, "Why all this commotion and wailing? The child is not dead, but asleep." But they laughed at him. After he put them all out, he took the child's far and more, and the disciples who were with him, and went in where the child was. He took her by the hand and said to her, "Talita kum," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." Immediately the girl stood up and began to walk around. She was 12 years old. At this they were completely astonished. He gave strict orders not to let anyone know about this, and told them to give her something to eat. Jesus left there and went to his hometown, accompanied by his disciples. When Shabbat came, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him were amazed. "Where did this man get these things?" they asked. "What's this wisdom that has been given him? What are these remarkable miracles he is performing? Isn't this the carpenter? Isn't this Mary's son, and the brother of James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon? Aren't his sisters here with us?" And they took offense at him. Jesus said to them, "A prophet is not without honor except in his own town, amongst his relatives, and in his own home." He could not do any miracles there except lay his hands on a few sick people and heal them. He was amazed at their lack of faith. Then Jesus went around teaching from village to village. Calling the 12 to him, he began to send them out 2 by 2 and gave them authority over impure spirits. These were his instructions: "Take nothing for the journey except a staff, no bread, no bag, no money in your belts. Wear sandals, but not an extra shirt. Whenever you enter a house, stay there until you leave that town. And if any place will not welcome you or listen to you, leave that place and shake the dust off your feet as a testimony against them." They went out and preached that people should repent. They drove out many demons and anointed many sick people with oil and healed them. King Herod heard about this, for Jesus' name had become well known. Some were saying John the Baptist has been raised from the dead, and that is why miraculous powers are at work in him. Others said he is Eliyahu, and still others claimed he is a prophet like one of the prophets of long ago. But when Herod heard this, he said, "John, whom I beheaded, has been raised from the dead." For Herod himself had given orders to have John arrested, and he had him bound and put in prison. He did this because Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, whom he had married. For John had been saying to Herod, "It is not lawful for you to have your brother's wife." So Herodias nursed a grudge against John and wanted to kill him, but she was not able to, because Herod feared John and protected him, knowing him to be a righteous and holy man. When Herod heard John, he was greatly puzzled, yet he liked to listen to him. Finally, the opportune time came. On his birthday, Herod gave a banquet for his high officials and military commanders and the leading men of Galilee. When the daughter of Herodias came in and danced, she pleased Herod and his dinner guests. The king said to the girl, "Ask me for anything you want, and I'll give it to you." And he promised her with an oath, "Whatever you ask, I will give you, up to half my kingdom." So she went out and asked and said to her more, "What shall I ask for?" "The head of John the Baptist," she answered. At once the girl hurried in to the king with the request, "I want you to give me right now the head of John the Baptist on a platter." The king was greatly distressed, but because of his oaths and his dinner guests, he did not want to refuse her. So he immediately sent an executioner with orders to bring John's head. The man went, beheaded John in the prison, and brought back his head on a platter. He presented it to the girl, and she gave it to her more. On hearing of this, John's disciples came and took his body and laid it in a tomb. The apostles gathered around Jesus and reported to him all they had done and taught. Then, because so many people were coming and going that they did not even have a chance to eat, he said to them, "Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest." So they went away by themselves in a boat to a solitary place. But so many saw them leaving, recognized them, and ran on foot from all the towns and got there ahead of them. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. So he began teaching them many things. By this time it was late in the day, so his disciples came to him. This is a remote place, they said, and it's already very late. Send the people away so that they can go to the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat. But he answered them, You give them something to eat. They said to him, That would take further than half a year's wages. Are we to go and spend that much on bread and give it to them to eat? How many loaves do you have? He asked. Go and see. When they found out, they said, 5 and 2 fish. Then Jesus directed them to have all the people sit down in groups on the green grass. So they sat down in groups of hundreds and fifties. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. Then he gave them to his disciples to distribute to the people. He also divided the 2 fish amongst them all. They all ate and were satisfied. And the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken portions of bread and fish. The number of the men who had eaten was 5,000. Immediately Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to Bethsaida, whilst he dismissed the crowd. After leaving them, he went up on a mountainside to pray. Later that night, the boat was in the middle of the lake, and he was alone on land. He saw the disciples straining at the oars because the wind was against them. Shortly before dawn, he went out to them, walking on the lake. He was about to pass by them. But when they saw him walking on the lake, they thought he was a ghost. They cried out, because they all saw him and were terrified. Immediately he spoke to them and said, Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid. Then he climbed into the boat with them, and the wind died down. They were completely amazed, for they had not understood about the loaves. Their hearts were hardened. When they had crossed over, they landed at Gennesaret and anchored there. As soon as they got out of the boat, the people recognized Jesus. They ran throughout that whole region and carried the sick on mats to wherever they heard he was. And wherever he went, into villages, towns, or countryside, they placed the sick in the marketplaces. They begged him to let them touch even the edge of his cloak, and all who touched it were healed. Quran, Surah Al-Kahf, Yitro. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Praise be to Allah, who hath sent to Allah's servant the book, and hath allowed therein no crookedness. Allah hath made it straight and clear, in order that Allah may warn the sacredless of a terrible punishment from Allah, and that Allah may give glad tidings to the believers who work righteous deeds, that they shall have a holy reward, wherein they shall remain forever. Further, that Allah may warn those also who say, Allah hath begotten a son. No knowledge have they of such a thing, nor had their fathers. It is a grievous thing that issues from their mouths as a saying, what they say is nothing but falsehood. Thou wouldst only perchance fret thyself to death, following after them in grief if they believe not in this message. That which is on earth we have made but as a glittering show for the earth, in order that we may test them, as to which of them are best in conduct. Verily, what is on earth we shall make but as dust and dry soil without growth or herbage. Or dost thou reflect that the companions of the cave and of the inscription were wonders amongst our signs? Behold, the youths betook themselves to the cave. They said, Our Lord, bestow on us mercy from thyself, and dispose of our affairs for us in the right way. Then we draw a veil over their ears for a number of years in the cave, so that they heard not. Then we roused them in order to test which of the two parties was best at calculating the term of years they had tarried. We relate to thee their story in truth. They were youths who believed in their Lord, and we advanced them in guidance. gave strength to their hearts. Behold, they stood up and said, Our Lord is the Lord of the heavens and of the earth. Never shall we call upon any deity other than Allah. If we did, we should indeed have uttered an enormity. These are people have taken for worship deities other than Allah. Why do they not bring forward an authority clear and convincing for what they do? Who doth further wrong than such as invent a falsehood against Allah? When ye turn away from them and the things they worship other than Allah, betake yourselves to the cave. Your Lord will shower Allah's mercy on you and disposes of your affair towards comfort and ease. Thou wouldst have seen the soleil when it rose declining to the right from their cave, and when it set, turning away from them to the left, whilst they lay in the open space in the midst of the cave. Such are amongst the signs of Allah. He whom Allah guides is rightly guided, but he whom Allah leaves to stray, for him wilt thou find no protector to lead him to the right way. Thou wouldst have deemed them awake whilst they were asleep, and we turned them on their right and on their left sides, their dog stretching forth his 2 forelegs on the threshold. If thou hadst come upon them, thou wouldst have certainly turned back from them in flight, and wouldst certainly have been filled with terror of them. Such being their state, we raised them up from sleep that they might question each other. Said one of them, How long have ye stayed here? They said, We have stayed perhaps a day, or part of a day. At length they all said, Allah alone knows best how long ye have stayed here. Now send ye then one of you with this money of yours to the town. Let them find out which is the best food to be had, and bring some to you, that ye may satisfy your hunger therewith. And let him behave with care and courtesy, and let him not inform any one about you. For if they should come upon you, they would stone you or force you to return to their cult, and in that case ye would never attain prosperity. Thus did we make their case known to the people, that they might know that the promise of Allah is true, and that there can be no doubt about the hour of judgment. Because, behold, they dispute amongst themselves as to their affairs. Some said, Construct a building over them. Their Lord knows best about them. Those who prevailed over their affairs said, Let us surely build a place of worship over them. Some say they were 3, the dog being the 4th amongst them. Others say they were 5, the dog being the 6th, doubtfully guessing at the unknown. Yet others say they were 7, the dog being the 8th. Say thou, My Lord knoweth best their number. It is but few that know their real case. Enter not therefore into controversies concerning them, except on a matter that is clear, nor consult any of them about the affair of the sleepers. Nor say of anything, I shall be sure to do so or so a mañana, without adding, so please God, so please Allah. And call thy Lord to mind when thou forgettest, and say, I hope that my Lord will guide me ever closer, even than this, to the right road. So they stayed in their cave 300 years, and some add 9 further. Say, Allah knows best how long they stayed. With Allah is the knowledge of the secrets of the heavens and the earth. How clearly Allah sees, how finely Allah hears everything. They have no protector other than Allah, nor does Allah share Allah's command with any person whatsoever. And recite and teach what has been revealed to thee of the book of thy Lord. None can change Allah's words, and none wilt thou find as a refuge other than Allah. And keep thy soul content with those who call on their Lord matin and evening, seeking Allah's face. And let not thine eyes pass beyond them, seeking the pomp and glitter of this life, nor obey any whose heart we have permitted to neglect the remembrance of us, one who follows his own desires, whose case has gone beyond all bounds. Say, the truth is from your Lord. Let him who will believe, and let him who will reject it. For the wrongdoers we have prepared a fire whose smoke and flames, like the walls and roof of a tent, will hem them in. If they implore relief, they will be granted water like melted brass, that will scald their faces. How dreadful the drink, how uncomfortable a couch to recline on. As to those who believe and work righteousness, verily we shall not suffer to perish the reward of any who do a single righteous deed. For them will be gardens of eternity. Beneath them rivers will flow. They will be adorned therein with bracelets of gold, and they will wear green garments of fine silk and heavy brocade. They will recline therein on raised thrones. How benevolent the recompense, how beautiful a couch to recline on. Set forth to them the parable of 2 men. For one of them we provided 2 gardens of grapevines, and surrounded them with date palms. In between the 2 we placed cornfields. Each of those gardens brought forth its produce and failed not in the least therein. In the midst of them we caused a river to flow. Abundant was the produce this man had. He said to his companion, in the course of a mutual argument, further wealth have I than you, and further honor and power in my following of men. He went into his garden in a state of mind unjust to his soul. He said, I deem not that this will ever perish, nor do I deem that the hour of judgment will ever come. Even if I am brought back to my Lord, I shall surely find there something better in exchange. His companion said to him in the course of the argument with him, Dost thou deny Allah who created thee out of dust, then out of a sperm drop, then fashioned thee into a man? But I think for my part that Allah is Allah, my Lord, and none shall I associate with my Lord. Why dost thou not, as thou wentest into thy garden, say, Allah's will be done? There is no power but with Allah. If thou dost see me less than thee in wealth and sons, it may be that the Lord will give me something better than thy garden, and that Allah will send on thy garden thunderbolts by way of reckoning from heaven, making it but slippery stand. Or the water of the garden will run off underground, so that thou wilt never be able to find it. So his fruits and enjoyment were encompassed with ruin, and he remained twisting and turning his hands over what he had spent on his property, which had now tumbled to portions to its very foundations, and he could only say, Woe is me! Would I had never ascribed partners to my Lord and Cherisher. Nor had he numbers to help him against Allah, nor was he able to deliver himself. There the only protection comes from Allah, the True One. Allah is the best to reward and the best to give success. Set forth to them the similitude of the life of this world. It is like the rain which we send down from the skies. The earth's vegetation absorbs it, but soon it becomes dry stubble, with which the winds do scatter. It is only Allah who prevails over all things. Wealth and sons are allurements of this world, of the life of this world, but the things that endure, benevolent deeds, are best in the sight of thy Lord, as rewards, and best as the foundation for hopes. One day we shall remove the mountains, and thou wilt see the earth as a level stretch, and we shall gather them all together, nor shall we leave out any one of them. And they will be marshaled before thy Lord in ranks, with the announcement, Now have ye come to us bare, as we created you first. Ye thought we shall not fulfill the appointment made to you to meet us. And the book of deeds will be placed before you, and thou wilt see the sinful in great terror because of what is recorded therein. They will say, woe to us, what a book is this? It leaves out nothing small or great, but takes account thereof. They will find all that they did placed before them, and not one will thy Lord treat with injustice. Behold, we said to the angels, Bow down to Adam. They bow down except Iblis. He was one of the jinns, and he broke the command of his Lord. Will ye then take him and his progeny as protectors rather than me? And they are enemies to you. Evil would be the exchange for the wrongdoers. I called them not to witness the creation of the heavens and the earth, nor even their own creation. Nor is it for a helper such as me to take as lead men astray. One day Allah will say, Call on those whom ye thought to be my partners, and they will call on them, but they will not listen to them, and we shall make for them a place of common perdition. And the sinful shall see the fire and apprehend that they have to fall therein. No means will they find to turn away therefrom. We have explained in detail in this Quran for the benefit of mankind every kind of similitude, but man is in most things contentious. And what is there to keep back men from believing, now that guidance has come to them, nor from praying for forgiveness from their Lord, but that they ask that the ways of the ancients be repeated with them, or the wrath be brought to them face to face. We only send the apostles to give glad tidings and to give warnings, but the unbelievers dispute with vain argument in order therewith to weaken the truth, and they treat my signs as a jest, as also the fact that they are warned. And who doth further wrong than one who is reminded of the signs of his Lord, but turns away from them, forgetting the deeds which his hands have sent forth? Verily, we have set veils over their hearts, lest they should understand this, and over their ears deafness. If thou callest them to guidance, even then will they never accept guidance. But your Lord is most forgiving, full of mercy. If Allah were to call them at once to account for what they have earned, then surely Allah would have hastened their punishment. But they have their appointed time, beyond which they will find no refuge. Such were the populations we destroyed when they committed iniquities, but we fixed an appointed time for their destruction. Behold, Moshe said to his attendant, I will not give up until I reach the junction of the two seas, or until I spend years and years in travel. But when they reached the junction, they forgot about their fish, which took its course through the sea, straight as in a tunnel. When they had passed on some distance, Moshe said to his attendant, Bring us our early meal. Truly we have suffered much fatigue at this stage of our journey. He replied, Sawest thou what happened when we betook ourselves to the rock? I did indeed forget about the fish. None but Satan made me forget to tell you about it. It took its course through the sea in a marvelous way. Moshe said, That was what we were seeking after. So they went back on their footsteps, following the path they had come. So they found one of our servants, on whom we had bestowed mercy from ourselves, and whom we had taught knowledge from our own presence. Moshe said to him, May I follow thee on the footing that thou teach me something of the higher truth which thou hast been taught? The other said, Verily thou wilt not be able to have patience with me. And how canst thou have patience about things about which thy understanding is not complete? Moshe said, Thou wilt find me, if Allah so will, truly patient, for nor shall I disobey thee in aught. The other said, If then thou wouldst follow me, ask me no questions about anything until I myself speak to thee concerning it. So they both proceeded, until when they were in the boat, he scuttled it. Said Moshe, Hast thou scuttled it in order to drown those in it? Truly a strange thing hast thou done. He answered, Did I not tell thee that thou canst have no patience with me? Moshe said, Rebuke me not for forgetting, nor grieve me by raising difficulties in my case. Then they proceeded until when they met a young man, he slew him. Moshe said, Hast thou slain an innocent person who had slain none? Truly a foul unheard of thing hast thou done. He answered, Did I not tell thee that thou canst have no patience with me? Moshe said, If I ever ask thee about anything after this, keep me not in thy company. Then wouldst thou have received full excuse from my side. Then they proceeded until when they came to the inhabitants of a town, they asked them for food, but they refused them hospitality. They found there a wall on the point of falling down, but he set it up straight. Moshe said, If thou hadst wished, surely thou couldst have exacted some recompense for it. He answered, This is the parting between me and thee. Now will I tell thee the interpretation of those things over which thou wast unable to hold patience. As for the boat, it belonged to certain men in dire want. They plied on the water, but I wished to render it unserviceable, for there was after them a certain king who seized on every boat by force. As for the youth, his parents were people of faith, and we feared that he would grieve them by obstinate rebellion and ingratitude to Allah and man. So we desired that their Lord would give them in exchange a son better in purity of conduct and closer in affection. As for the wall, it belonged to two youths, orphans in the town. There was beneath it a buried treasure, to which they were entitled. Their father had been a righteous man. So thy Lord desired that they should attain their age of full strength, and get out their treasure, a mercy and a favor from thy Lord. I did it not of my own accord. Such is the interpretation of those things over which thou wast unable to hold patience. They ask thee concerning Zulkarnain. Say, I will rehearse to you something of his story. Verily, we established his power on earth, and we have given him the ways and the means to all ends. One such way he followed. Until when he reached the setting of the soleil, he found it set in a spring of murky water. Near it he found a people. We said, O Zulkarnain, thou hast authority either to punish them or to treat them with kindness. He said, Whoever doth wrong, him shall we punish. Then shall he be sent back to his Lord, and Allah will punish him with a punishment unheard of before. But whoever believes and works righteousness, he shall have a benevolent reward, and easily will be his task as we order it by our command. Then followed he another way, until when he came to the rising of the soleil, he found it rising on a people for whom we had provided no covering protection against the soleil. He left them as they were. We completely understood what was before him. Then followed he another way, until when he reached a tract between two mountains, he found beneath them a people who scarcely understood a word. They said, O Zulkarnain, the Gog and the Magog people do great mischief on earth. Shall we then render thee tribute in order that thou mightest erect a barrier between us and them? He said, The power in which my Lord has established me is better than tribute. Help me therefore with strength and labor. I will erect a strong barrier between you and them. Bring me blocks of iron. At length, when he had filled up the space between the two steep mountain sides, he said, Blow with your bellows. Then, when he had made it red as fire, he said, Bring me that I may pour over it molten lead. Thus were they made powerless to scale it or to dig through it. He said, This is a mercy from my Lord. But when the promise of my Lord comes to pass, Allah will make it into dust, and the promise of my Lord is true. On the day we shall leave them to surge like waves on one another. The trumpet will be blown, and we shall collect them all together. And we shall present hell that day for unbelievers to see all spread out. Unbelievers whose eyes had been under a veil of remembrance of me, and who had been unable even to hear. Do the unbelievers think that they can take my servants as protectors besides me? Verily, we have prepared hell for the unbelievers for their entertainment. Say, shall we tell you of those who lose most in respect of their deeds, those whose efforts have been wasted in this life, whilst they thought that they were acquiring benefit by their works? They are those who deny the signs of their Lord and the fact of their having to meet Allah in the hereafter. Vain will be their works, nor shall we on the day of judgment give them any weight. That is the reward, hell, because they rejected faith and took my signs and my messengers by way of jest. As to those who believe and work righteous deeds, they have for their entertainment the gardens of paradise, wherein they shall dwell for aye. No change will they wish for it from them. Say, if the ocean were ink wherewith to write out the words of my Lord, sooner would the ocean be exhausted than with the words of my Lord, even if we added another ocean like it for its aid. Say, I am but a man like yourselves, but the inspiration has come to me that your Allah is one Allah. Whoever expects to meet his Lord, let him work righteousness, and in the worship of his Lord admit no one as partner. Tao Te Ching 16 a 21. Attain the ultimate emptiness. Hold on to the truest tranquility. The myriad things are all active. I therefore watch their return. Everything flourishes, each returns to its root. Returning to the root is called tranquility. Tranquility is called returning to one's nature. Returning to one's nature is called constancy. Knowing constancy is called clarity. Not knowing constancy, one recklessly causes trouble. Knowing constancy is acceptance. Acceptance is impartiality. Impartiality is sovereign. Sovereign is heaven. Heaven is Tao. Tao is eternal. The self is no further without danger. The highest rulers, people do not know they have them. The next level, people love them and honor them. The next level, people fear them. The next level, people despise them. If the ruler's trust is insufficient, have no trust in them. Proceeding calmly, valuing their words, task accomplished, matter settled. The people all say, we did it naturally. The great Tao fades away. There is benevolence and justice. Intelligence comes forth. There is great deception. The six relations are not harmonious. There is filial piety and kind affection. The country is in confused chaos. There are loyal ministers. End sagacity, abandon knowledge. The people benefit 100 times. End benevolence, abandon righteousness. The people return to piety and charity. End cunning, discard benefit. Bandits and thieves no longer exist. These three things are superficial and insufficient. Thus, this teaching has its place. Show plainness, hold simplicity. Reduce selfishness, decrease desires. Cease learning, no further worries. Respectful response and scornful response. How much is the difference? Benevolence and evil, how much do they differ? What the people fear, I cannot be unafraid. So desolate, how limitless it is. The people are excited as if enjoying a great feast, as if climbing up to the terrace in spring. I alone am quiet and uninvolved, like an infant not yet smiling, so weary like having no place to return. The people all have surplus, whilst I alone seem lacking. I have the heart of a fool indeed, so ignorant. Ordinary people are bright, I alone am muddled. Ordinary people are scrutinizing, I alone am obtuse. Such tranquility like the ocean, such high wind as if without limits. The people all have goals, and I alone am stubborn and lowly. I alone am different from them and value the nourishing more. The appearance of great virtue follows only the Tao. The Tao as a thing seems indistinct, seems unclear. So unclear, so indistinct. Within it there is image, so indistinct, so unclear. Within it there is substance, so deep, so profound. Within it there is essence. Its essence is supremely real. Within it there is faith. From ancient times to the present, its name never departs. To observe the source of all things, how do I know the nature of the source? With this. Alhamdulillah, Rahman Rahim, Allahu Akbar. Deus noster qui es in celis, sanctificatum nomen tuum, vahegusana. Dau kadau fehung dau. Ja. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kasanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'sok b'dvarai Torah. Kyrie eleison. Sivu master savrigatehi. Sabe sata b'avantu sukitata. Fagabia. Ubuntu. Shabano. Fegako. Aqua ba'u pena na amani. Womenjeka. Shishe. Como se nida. Domo arigato. Pilama yellow walk and talk odokushin good. God, we thank you for all that you bless us. Go with the God. Adjama yata fanami. Aho. Om shanti shanti shanti. Amen. Alhamdulillah Rahman Rahim. Allahu Akbar. Deus noster qui es in celis, sanctificatum nomen tuum, vahegusana. Dau kadau fehung dau. Ja. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lachem min haaretz. Kyrie eleison. Sivu masu savrigatehi. Sabe sata b'avantu sukitata. Fagabia. Ubuntu. Shabana. Fekako. Aquaba upendo na amani. Womenjeka. Shishe. Como sundida. Domo arigato. Pilama yellow walk and talk odokushin good. God, we thank you for all that you bless us. Go with the God. Adjama yata fanami. Aho. Om shanti shanti shanti. Amen. Namaste, assalamu alaikum, shalom, adios, ajen, te jakaris, asumudu, kelegu fred, one love and peace. Blessings.